Imagine waking up as a Roman emperor in the 2nd century AD, draped in luxurious silks, commanding vast armies, yet wrestling with hygiene rituals so primitive they'd shock your modern senses. Because even the mightiest ruler couldn't escape the gritty reality of ancient Rome's bathrooms. Ready for a day in the life of imperial splendor and surprising squalor? Imagine waking up as a Roman emperor in the 2nd century AD, commanding vast armies and unimaginable wealth, yet struggling with hygiene rituals that blend ultimate luxury with shocking primitiveness, far removed from our modern comforts. You know what's crazy? Your bathroom probably has more advanced technology than the most powerful man in the ancient world. That's right. Even with all the wealth of an empire spanning 3 continents at his fingertips, a Roman emperor couldn't flush a toilet properly. And while you're settling into your comfortable bed tonight, just know that emperors who commanded armies of hundreds of thousands had to deal with parasites, skin infections, and body odor that would make your worst day smell like a field of roses. All right, let's head back to ancient Rome. Trust me, it's going to be quite a ride. So, congratulations. You just woke up in a Roman imperial palace in the 2nd century AD. The first thing you notice is that you're not lying on some rough wool blanket. No, you're sprawled across a mattress stuffed with the softest swan feathers money can buy, all wrapped in imported Chinese silk sheets dyed Tyrian purple, a color so expensive that only the imperial family is legally allowed to wear it. Your nose catches a lingering scent of frankincense and are burning in golden braziers positioned around your bedchamber. These exotic resins have traveled thousands of miles from Arabia and cost nearly their weight in gold. But there's something else underneath that pleasant aroma. The faint smell of human waste from the chamber pot that sits in the corner of your bedroom. That's your first clue that being emperor isn't all glamour. See, even the most powerful man in the world can't escape certain biological necessities. And in ancient Rome, indoor plumbing isn't quite what you're used to. The morning light filters through translucent alabaster windows, casting a warm glow across the mosaic floor, depicting Neptune and his sea creatures. You can hear the soft padding of slave feet outside your door as the household begins to stir. At least 50 people are already working preparing for your imperial day before you've even opened your eyes. The bedroom door opens, and in comes your personal body slave, the one who sleeps at the foot of your bed and attends to your most intimate needs. He's carrying a silver basin of warm water, scented with lavender and rose oil. Behind him follow 6 more slaves, each with a specific role in your morning routine. "Good morning, Caesar," your body slave murmurs, his eyes downcast as he places the basin on a marble stand next to your bed. "Shall we begin?" You nod. An elaborate morning ritual of imperial hygiene commences. First comes your teeth. No toothbrush like you know it. Instead, a slave hands you a small twig from the Salvadora persica known as a chew stick. It's been imported at great expense from Syria specifically for this purpose. You chew one end until it becomes frayed like a brush, then scrub your teeth with it. The wood has natural antiseptic properties, but it's not exactly minty fresh. Some mornings you use a tooth powder made of burned and ground animal bones mixed with honey, but the result is about the same. Somewhat cleaner teeth, but still a far cry from modern dental hygiene. And here's the thing that would shock your dentist. Sometimes Romans cleaned their teeth with human urine. Yes, actual piss. The ammonia in urine was thought to whiten teeth. Emperor Nero supposedly used it, which is frankly the least disturbing thing about Nero. After rinsing your mouth with water, thankfully not urine, your body slave helps you use a chamber pot, a beautifully decorated silver vessel, but still just a fancy bucket for human waste. No flushing, no privacy. Your slave will empty it later into one of the palace's private latrines, which drain into the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's main sewer system. Now for your face. A slave brings forth a collection of small alabaster bottles containing various oils and creams. The most basic is olive oil, the foundation of Roman skincare. Another contains a mixture of lanolin, sheep's wool grease, and beeswax to moisturize your skin. There's also a concoction of white lead to lighten your complexion, because pale skin shows you don't work in the sun like a common laborer. Yes, you heard that right. You're literally putting lead on your face. It's slowly poisoning you. But hey, beauty is pain, right, Caesar? Shall we apply the honey mass this morning? Ask your body slave. For the pimple on your forehead. Even emperors get zits. Julius Caesar was reportedly so bothered by his receding hairline that he combed his remaining hair forward and was grateful for the laurel wreath that covered his baldness. Emperor Tiberius struggled with acne well into adulthood, using treatments involving resin, alum, and honey. Emperor Hadrian grew a beard, starting a fashion trend, possibly to hide skin problems on his face. You gnawed, and they smoothed a mixture of honey and crushed herbs onto your skin. Honey actually has antibacterial properties. So, this is one of the more effective treatments in your imperial medicine cabinet. Now comes the exciting part, dealing with body hair. Romans were obsessed with hair removal. A hairy body was considered barbaric, uncivilized. Even male emperors removed most of their body hair. Your slaves bring forward small bronze tweezers to pluck stray facial hairs. For larger areas, they apply a resin paste similar to modern waxing. The most dedicated hair removal enthusiasts might use pumice stones to actually scrape the hair away. Painful but effective. And for the truly committed, there's a depilatory cream made from some truly horrifying ingredients. Quicklime, which can burn the skin, and things like bat's blood and powdered viper. The late Emperor Elagabalus reportedly had all the hair removed from his entire body to appear more feminine, then wore wigs and makeup. But that's just one of the tamer stories about Elagabalus, who might have been Rome's most eccentric emperor. We'll get to more of his antics later. On to your hair. If you're balding like Julius Caesar, you might try some remedies. Massaging the scalp with a mixture of ground horse teeth and bear grease, or applying chicken droppings. Spoiler alert, none of these work. If you're like Emperor Otho, who ruled briefly in 69 AD, you might wear a wig so carefully crafted that supposedly no one could tell it wasn't your real hair. Or like Emperor Domitian, you could have artists depict you with a full head of hair in statues and coins. Despite your obvious baldness, image management isn't just a modern concern. For those emperors blessed with a full head of hair, daily styling was important. Men's hair was generally kept short after Julius Caesar made it fashionable, and slaves would trim it with iron scissors and comb it with ornate ivory combs. Some emperors like Caracalla purposely copied the cropped military cut to appear more soldier-like to the troops. Now that your face and hair are taken care of, it's time for the first substantial hygiene ritual of the day, your morning bath. You might think that as emperor you'd have your own private imperial bath, and you do. Several, in fact. But the bath isn't just about getting clean. It's a social experience, a place to conduct informal business, to see and be seen. So even emperors often use the public baths, though they might reserve private rooms or entire facilities for their personal use. Today, though, you're starting with a quick private bath in your palace before heading to the grand public one later. Your slaves lead you to a warm, steam-filled room with a marble tub already filled with hot water, scented with verbena and laurel. But you don't just hop in and start scrubbing with soap, because soap, as we know it, doesn't really exist in ancient Rome. Instead, a slave helps you strip naked, and then applies olive oil all over your body. The oil captures dirt, sweat, and dead skin. Then comes the strigil, a curved metal tool used to scrape the oil and everything it's collected off your body. It's essentially a human squeegee. This scraping isn't gentle. It leaves your skin pink, and sometimes even draws blood if the slave isn't careful. Emperor Augustus apparently had a skin condition that resembled ringworm, which some attributed to his vigorous use of the strigil. After the oil scraping, you're finally ready to enter the bath. The warm water feels good against your freshly scraped skin. More scented oils are added to the water, perhaps some imported from Egypt containing myrrh, cardamom, or cinnamon. You soak for a while as a slave gently splashes water over your shoulders and back. When you emerge, you're patted dry with soft linen towels. Then a final scented oil is applied to moisturize your skin. This might be one of the most expensive items in your hygiene routine. A perfumed oil made with nard from the Himalayas or rose oil that requires thousands of petals to produce a single vial. Fully bathed and oiled, you're ready to dress. No underwear as we know it. Instead, you wrap a loincloth called a subligaculum around your waist. Over this goes a tunic of the finest linen, and for formal occasions a toga, which is basically a huge woolen blanket artfully draped around the body. It's so complicated to put on properly that you need several slaves to help you. The toga is actually falling out of daily fashion by the 2nd century, seen as too cumbersome for everyday wear. But as emperor, tradition demands you wear for official functions. Now that you're dressed, it's time for breakfast. Roman breakfast is a simple affair, even for an emperor. Perhaps some bread dipped in wine, a few figs or dates, maybe a boiled egg. The main meal of the day comes later. After breakfast, you start your imperial duties, meeting with advisors, reading petitions, perhaps presiding over the Senate or a court case. By midday, you're ready for a more substantial meal and perhaps the highlight of an emperor's daily hygiene routine, the trip to the public baths. Now, when I say public baths, I don't mean you're scrubbing elbows with the common folk. As emperor, you might have the entire facility cleared for your use, or you might have your own private suite within the larger complex. Either way, the full Roman bathing experience is about to begin. Your entourage escorts you through the streets of Rome to one of the massive bath complexes, perhaps the baths of Trajan, or later, the even more massive baths of Caracalla. These aren't just places to get clean. They're more like a combination of spa, gym, library, art gallery, and social club. You enter to the palestra, an open courtyard where men exercise and train. Some are wrestling, others lifting weights or throwing the discus. You might join in for some light exercise. Keeping fit is important for an emperor who wants to maintain the appearance of vigor, but not too much. You don't want to appear like you're actually working for your fitness. That would be beneath your dignity. After some token exercise, you're covered in a light sweat, perfect for the bathing sequence to follow. Your slaves help you undress in the apodyterium changing room, and you proceed to the tepidarium, a warm room designed to open your pores and prepare your body for the main bath. Next comes the caldarium, the hot room. Steam fills the air and the floor is so hot you need special wooden clogs to avoid burning your feet. The heat is intense, making you sweat profusely. This is considered highly beneficial, purging impurities from the body. In some caldaria, there are pools of hot water for soaking, while others are simply steam rooms. After sufficiently cooking yourself in the heat, you move to the frigidarium, a room with a cold plunge pool. The shock of going from hot to cold is invigorating, causing a gasp as you submerge yourself in the chilly water. This practice of alternating hot and cold temperatures is believed to strengthen the constitution and prevent disease. Throughout this process, slaves attend to your every need, applying oils, scraping with a strigil again, massaging tired muscles, and making sure you're comfortable. Other attendants might be circulating, offering food and drink, or providing entertainment. The bathing ritual complete, you might visit other areas of the bath complex, perhaps the library, to catch up on some reading, or a hall where a poet is giving a recitation. You might conduct some informal business meetings, or simply gossip with friends. The baths are as much about socializing as hygiene. But now, as the afternoon wears on, your thoughts turn to the main meal of the day, the cena. This is where an emperor can really display his wealth and power through extravagant dining habits. And boy, did some emperors take this to extremes. Emperor Vitellius, who ruled briefly in 69 AD, was said to eat 4 enormous meals a day and was so gluttonous that he would sample dishes at one banquet, then rush off to another. His most famous dish was called a shield of Minerva, a massive platter filled with pike livers, peacock brains, flamingo tongues, lamprey milk, and other exotic delicacies gathered from across the empire. Emperor Elagabalus supposedly served peas with gold pieces, lentils with onyx, beans with amber, and rice with pearls, making his guests literally eat money. He also allegedly served his guests wax fruit while he dined on real food, or presented them with meals made of glass or marble as a bizarre joke. As you prepare for your own imperial dinner, you consider what level of extravagance to display. Will you be like Augustus, who preferred simple foods, or like Claudius, who would gorge himself until he was stuffed and soaked? Your head chef, a highly prized slave worth a small fortune, has prepared a menu for your approval. Tonight's starter will include oysters from Britain, marinated flamingo, and dormice rolled in honey and poppy seeds. The main courses feature peacock stuffed with sausages, a whole roasted boar, and sea bass so fresh it was swimming in the Mediterranean this morning. Dessert will be exotic fruits from all corners of the empire, along with sweet wine cakes. But before the dinner begins, there's one more hygiene ritual to complete: the pre-dinner bath. Yes, another bath. Romans love their baths. This one is quicker, more of a refresh after the day's activities before the evening's entertainment. As the sun begins to set, you're led to the triclinium, the formal dining room. Here, 3 couches are arranged in a U shape around a central table. As emperor, you take the place of honor on the middle couch. You don't sit but recline on your left elbow, leaving your right hand free to eat. Unlike the Greeks, who segregated men and women at banquets, Roman women of the upper class join the men at dinner. Your empress reclines beside you, adorned in jewels and fine fabrics, her hair elaborately styled by her own team of slave cosmeticians. The food begins to arrive, carried by a parade of slaves. There are no forks. You eat with your fingers or spoons, taking small bites and carefully wiping your hands on linen napkins between courses. Conversation flows along with the wine, which is always mixed with water. Drinking undiluted wine is considered barbaric. As emperor, you set the tone for the evening. Will you engage in philosophical discussion like Marcus Aurelius might have? Or will you humiliate your guests like Caligula, who would invite senators to dinner, then force them to watch as he slept with their wives? Perhaps you'll take inspiration from Domitian, who once threw a funeral-themed banquet. He painted the dining room black, placed tombstones with each guest named by their couches, had young boys painted black like ghosts serve the food, and only served traditional funeral fare. The guests thought they were about to be executed, only to be sent home with gifts at the end of the terrifying meal. The dinner stretches on for hours with entertainment between courses, perhaps musicians, poets, or even acrobats. Some less reputable emperors might have provided more adult entertainment, but we'll leave those stories for another time. As the evening wears on, the atmosphere becomes more relaxed. Some guests might be visibly drunk, though as emperor, you maintain your composure. Too much visible intoxication would be beneath your dignity, though some emperors, like Tiberius, were notorious for their drunken excesses. Speaking of excess, there's a persistent myth that Romans would vomit during banquets to make room for more food. While some certainly overindulged and might have gotten sick, the idea of a designated vomitorium for this purpose is a modern misconception. The real vomitoria were actually the exit passages in amphitheaters, named for the way they spewed forth crowds. Still, some emperors did take gluttony to extremes. Emperor Claudius apparently ate so much at banquets that he would fall asleep at the table, whereupon a feather would be put down his throat to make him vomit and relieve his stomach. As the banquet finally winds down, your guests prepare to depart, thanking you profusely for your imperial hospitality. It's been a long day of imperial hygiene and dining rituals, but it's still not quite over. Before bed, you have one final hygiene ritual, the night toilet. Again, slaves bring the chamber pot and help you relieve yourself. More slaves assist with removing your clothes and jewelry, wiping away any remaining dinner crumbs from your face and hands with damp cloths. Your body slave applies one final round of skin treatments, perhaps an overnight mass of bread soaked in milk, and ass's milk to maintain a youthful appearance. Emperor Nero's wife, Poppaea, was famous for bathing in donkey milk and reportedly traveled with a herd of 500 donkeys to ensure a fresh supply. Finally, you're ready for sleep. You slide between those luxurious silk sheets, and your body slave takes its position on a small pallet at the foot of your bed, ready to attend to any needs that might arise during the night. As you drift off, you might reflect on the paradox of your position. You command unimaginable wealth and power. People tremble at your name across 3 continents. Yet for all your luxury, your daily hygiene will be considered primitive by modern standards. You put lead on your face, scrape your skin raw instead of using soap, and your teeth are probably in terrible condition, despite the slave who brushes them for you. All the imperial power in the world can't give you modern plumbing or protect you from the parasites and diseases that run rampant even in the imperial palace. Your stomach is probably plagued with worms. And despite all the bathing, you likely smell pretty right by modern standards, as do all your fancy dinner guests. Tomorrow, you'll wake up and do it all again. The elaborate rituals of imperial hygiene that are simultaneously more luxurious and more primitive than anything you could imagine. Being a Roman emperor means having hundreds of slaves to keep you clean, but never quite achieving a level of hygiene that the average person in the modern world takes for granted. The slave at the door extinguishes the oil lamp, plunging the imperial bedchamber into darkness. In the distance, you can hear the street sounds of Rome slowly quieting as night falls on the eternal city. Your last thought before sleep takes you is of tomorrow's schedule. More meetings, more baths, and a visit from your barber to touch up your hair and beard. The business of looking imperial never really ends. Morning comes too quickly in the imperial palace. The slaves are already stirring before dawn, preparing for your awakening. Your body slave gently rouses you as the first light creeps through the alabaster windows. "Caesar, it is time," he whispers. Today's schedule includes a military review in the morning, so your appearance must be particularly impressive. Not just clean, but commanding. The full imperial hygiene ritual begins again. The slave brings a small ornate glass bottle filled with morning breath freshener, a mixture of Corsican mint, salt, and charcoal. You swish it around your mouth and spit into a golden basin. The taste is bitter, but better than morning breath. Some emperors preferred more exotic mouth fresheners. Nero supposedly used an expensive concoction containing cinnamon imported from as far away as China. Your personal physician enters the room with a concerned look. He's noticed a rash developing on your arm, possibly from yesterday's scented oils, or perhaps something more serious. Skin conditions were the bane of many emperors. "Divine Caesar," he says with a deep bow, "I prepared a special salve for your irritation." The physician applies a greenish paste to your arm. It smells of crushed herbs and something less pleasant, possibly animal dung. You don't ask. Roman medicine often involved ingredients you'd rather not know about. Emperor Tiberius trusted his personal physician Chericles so completely that the doctor was one of the few people who could tell when the emperor was dying. While the medicine does its work, it's time to address a more pressing matter. Your bladder is full and the ornate chamber pot awaits. Even emperors can't escape basic biological functions. Privacy wasn't a big concern for Romans. Your body slave stands ready with soft cloths to clean you afterward. There's no toilet paper in ancient Rome. The wealthy used soft wool or linen cloths, while commoners made do with a tersorium, essentially a sponge on a stick kept in a bucket of vinegar or salt water between uses. Public latrines even had these as communal cleaning implements. Basically the worst job for a bathroom attendant ever. But as emperor, your waste management is a cut above. Your private latrine is a marvel of Roman engineering. Instead of the multi-seat public facilities where Romans socialize while handling their business, you have a private marble throne. Water constantly flows beneath it, carrying waste to the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's main sewer that empties into the Tiber River. Emperor Hadrian was known for installing particularly luxurious private toilets in his villa near Tivoli. Archaeological evidence shows he had several single-seat latrines with marble seats and footrests arranged near dining halls, but with enough distance to keep odor at bay. After addressing nature's call, it's time for the serious grooming to begin. Today, You've decided to visit your barber rather than having him come to the palace. The tonsure, as barbers are called, maintains a shop that serves as both grooming center and social hub for the elite. Though, as emperor, the shop will be closed to other customers during your visit. Your entourage escorts you through the streets of Rome. Common people prostrate themselves as you pass. Some brave souls call out blessings, hoping to catch your eye and perhaps your favor. You maintain a careful balance of dignified acknowledgement without seeming too approachable. The barber shop is small but well appointed with bronze mirrors and an array of specialized tools. The barber himself is Greek. The Romans believed Greek barbers were superior, much like how people today might seek out an Italian tailor or French chef. Imperator, he says with a deep bow, you honor my humble shop. You settle into the chair as slaves prepare hot towels. The barber examines your beard carefully. Facial hair has gone through many fashion cycles in Rome. Julius Caesar was famously clean-shaven, setting a trend that lasted until Hadrian debuted his beard in the 2nd century AD, possibly to hide facial scars or skin problems. If you're ruling during the Hadrianic period or after, you'll likely wear a neatly trimmed beard that needs daily maintenance. If you're channeling the earlier emperors like Augustus or Tiberius, you'll be clean-shaven, requiring a daily shave since Romans didn't have modern razors. The barber applies olive oil to soften your facial hair, then uses a novacula, a Roman razor made of iron, to carefully scrape away the stubble. It's not nearly as sharp as modern razors, making shaving a lengthier, more uncomfortable process. After the shave, he applies a soothing alum block to any nicks, then a scented oil to moisturize the skin. Next comes a hair trim. Roman men generally wore their hair short and neatly styled forward, a fashion set by Julius Caesar, partly to cover his balding. The barber carefully trims with bronze scissors, then uses heated irons to create subtle waves, the Roman equivalent of styling product. Divine one, shall I pluck the gray hairs? Asks the barber delicately. You nod. Even emperors fear aging. While some, like Claudius, wore their gray with dignity, others, like Nero and Caligula, were obsessed with maintaining a youthful appearance. The barber uses tiny bronze tweezers to remove any betraying strands of silver for emperors with more extensive hair loss. There were various remedies. Pliny the Elder recommended a paste made from the ashes of horse teeth mixed with cypress leaves and applied to the scalp under a warm cloth. Julius Caesar tried everything from special combing methods to wearing his laurel wreath before finally receiving the right from the Senate to permanently wear a crown convenient for hiding his baldness. Emperor Domitian was so sensitive about his hair loss that he wrote a book called De Cura Capillarum on the care of the hair despite being noticeably bald himself. In his official portraits and coins, artists gave him a full head of hair, perhaps the first case of image manipulation for vanity. Otho, who briefly ruled during the chaotic year for Emperor 69 AD, wore a wig so convincing that nobody dared mention it was fake. Whether it actually fooled anyone is another question. People tend not to point out the emperor's flaws if they value their heads. With your hair and beard addressed, the barber moves on to other unwanted hair. Romans considered body hair uncivilized, associating it with barbarians and animals. Even the manliest emperor was expected to have at least some hair removal. For small areas, plucking with tweezers was common. For larger surfaces, various depilatory creams and pastes were used. One recipe from the physician Galen called for roasted and ground hedgehog spines mixed with vinegar and applied to unwanted hair. Another used burnt frog bones and donkey fat. Most effective was a paste made from resin or pitch similar to modern waxing. Some particularly image-conscious emperors like Elagabalus reportedly removed all body hair to appear more feminine. According to historical accounts, he offered vast sums of money to any physician who could perform gender reassignment surgery, obviously impossible with ancient medical knowledge, but illustrating the lengths some emperors would go for the desired appearance. Grooming complete, you leave a generous tip for the barber, perhaps a gold coin worth a month's wages for an ordinary Roman. Such extravagance is expected from an emperor. Back at the palace, It's time to prepare for the military review. Your armor must be polished to a mirror shine, and you'll wear the military uniform rather than the toga to connect with the troops. But first, a light meal to sustain you through the morning activities. A slave brings fresh fig dates and bread with honey. Another offers watered wine. Drinking undiluted wine in the morning will be considered problematic even for an emperor. Romans believed strongly in moderation for morning meals, saving their indulgences for the evening banquet. As you eat, your secretary reads the day's schedule and any urgent messages that arrived overnight. One catches your attention: the arrival of a new shipment of cosmetics and perfumes from Egypt, including rare kifi, a complex fragrance used by Egyptian royalty and priests, made with 16 different ingredients, including myrrh, juniper berries, and sweet flag. Egyptian beauty products were highly praised in Rome, especially their perfumes and eye makeup. Cleopatra supposedly wrote a book on cosmetics that was studied by wealthy Roman women. Egyptian kohl for lining the eyes was popular not just for its aesthetic effect, but because Romans believed it could prevent eye infections, and they weren't entirely wrong, as some formulations contained antimicrobial compounds. After your light breakfast, slaves help you don your military attire. The breastplate is gold-plated and decorated with scenes of your victorious campaigns. Whether those victories were real or exaggerated depends on your particular reign. Some emperors like Trajan earned their military acclaim. Others like Commodus simply claimed it. Before you leave for the review, a final spritz of perfume. Roman men used perfume liberally without any stigma of effeminacy. Your personal scent is a closely guarded formula made specifically for you from ingredients sourced across the empire. Frankincense from Arabia, rose oil from Syria, citrus from Spain, and ambergris found floating in the sea. The perfumer who creates your signature scent is paid handsomely and sworn to secrecy. If another noble were to smell exactly like the emperor, it would be considered a serious breach of protocol, possibly even treasonous. Properly groomed, fed, and dressed, you proceed to the campus marshes for the military review. The morning sun glints off thousands of polished helmets as the legionaries stand at attention. Being seen by the troops is crucial for maintaining their loyalty, something several emperors learned the hard way when they neglected the army. The review goes well. You inspect the troops, give a brief speech about Roman glory, and distribute some silver coins as a token of imperial favor. The soldiers cheer enthusiastically, whether from genuine admiration or the prospect of more coins is unclear. By midday, the summer heat becomes oppressive. Sweat trickles down your back under the heavy armor, and the perfume you applied earlier mingles with a less pleasant sense of exertion. It's definitely time for the midday bath. Your entourage escorts you to the baths of Trajan, one of Rome's magnificent public bathing complexes. As emperor, you might choose to bathe privately, but there's political value in being seen enjoying the same facilities as your subjects, albeit with special accommodations. The bathhouse manager has been alerted to your arrival and has cleared the imperial suite. As you enter, slaves rush forward to help remove your armor and clothing. The bathing ritual begins again, much like your morning ablutions, but more elaborate. First comes the apodyterium, the changing room, where your clothes and valuables are guarded by trusted slaves. From there, you move to the unctuarium, where slaves apply scented oils to your entire body. The oil serves both to clean and to prepare your skin for the heat to come. Next is the tepidarium, a warm room designed to open your pores and prevent shock from entering the hot bath too quickly. The room is heated by an ingenious Roman invention called a hypocaust, essentially an underground furnace that circulates hot air through hollow spaces in the floors and walls. After sufficient time in the tepidarium, you proceed to the caldarium, the hottest room in the bath complex. Here the temperature approaches that of a modern sauna, causing profuse sweating believed to purge impurities from the body. The air is scented with eucalyptus and bay laurel to help clear the breathing passages. In the caldarium, slaves use strigils to scrape away the oil, sweat, and dirt from your skin. The, The curved bronze tools require a skilled hand. Press too hard, and they cut the skin too lightly, and they don't clean effectively. The slaves collect a grime-laden oil in small containers known as gloyos. This substance was actually sold as a medicinal treatment for joint pain and skin conditions, a rather disgusting form of recycling. After the heat of the caldarium, you move to the frigidarium with its cold plunge pool. The shock of the temperature change is invigorating, causing a gasp as you submerge in the chilly water. The Romans believed this hot-cold contrast strengthened the constitution and prevented disease. Your bathing ritual concludes with massage. The skilled hands of the bath attendant work scented oils into your muscles, easing any tension from the morning's activities. Different emperors had different preferences for massage. Augustus reportedly enjoyed having his back slapped gently, while Hadrian preferred firmer pressure to work out knots from his military campaigns. Clean, refreshed, and relaxed. You might now visit other areas of the bath complex, perhaps the library to catch up on correspondence, or the exercise yard to watch athletes and wrestlers. The baths are as much social and cultural centers as they are hygiene facilities. As you stroll through the complex, nobles and wealthy citizens bow deeply or prostrate themselves depending on the protocol of your particular reign. Some emperors like Marcus Aurelius encouraged a more relaxed atmosphere, while others like Domitian demanded abject submission. Divine Caesar calls out a senator bowing low. Might I have the honor of dining with you this evening? Political networking never stops, even in the baths. You graciously accept or decline based on your political calculations. Dining invitations were serious business in Rome. Accepting meant bestowing favor, while declining could signal displeasure or even danger for the host. By mid-afternoon, having completed your bath and social obligations, you return to the palace to prepare for the evening's entertainment. Tonight, you're hosting a dinner for important senators and military commanders, a crucial opportunity to gauge loyalties and cement alliances. Your head chef has been preparing since dawn, creating dishes designed to impress without being too ostentatious. Different emperors had different approaches to dining. Augustus preferred simple meals, while Vitellius was so gluttonous that his brief reign was marked by constant feasting on exotic delicacies. The dining room triclinium is being prepared with fresh flowers and aromatic herbs strewn across the floor. Slaves polish silver platters and arrange the couches in the traditional U shape around the central table. Musicians practice quietly in the corner, ready to provide ambient entertainment. Before the guests arrive, you take time for one more grooming session. A slave applies a light dusting of powder to your face to reduce oil and shine. A mixture of chalk and rice powder that gives a matte finish. Another carefully trims any stray hairs from your nose or ears. Tiny details that matter for imperial dignity. Your toga for the evening is brought forward. The toga picked a dyed purple with Tyrian purple and embroidered with gold. So expensive is this dye made from thousands of crushed murex, sea snails, that it's reserved exclusively for imperial use. The message is clear. You alone are emperor, set apart even in your clothing. Dressing in a toga requires assistance. It's essentially a semicircular cloth about 6 yards long that must be draped just right to create the proper silhouette. Slaves arrange each fold perfectly, then secure it with hidden pins. The result is impressive, but incredibly impractical. You can barely move your left arm, and eating while maintaining the toga's dignity will be a challenge. The final touch is your jewelry, a gold signet ring bearing the imperial seal, perhaps another ring or two, depending on fashion, and for some emperors, earrings. Julius Caesar wore a single earring, while later emperors like Caracalla avoided them as too Eastern or feminine. As the first guests begin to arrive, you settle onto your dining couch in the position of honor. The evening of imperial dining and diplomacy is about to begin with all its elaborate rituals, unspoken hierarchies, and potential political landmines. Each guest is announced formally, then approaches to greet you with the appropriate deference. Some emperors offer their hand to be kissed, others their feet, while some, like Caligula, reportedly expected senators to kiss his horse's hooves. The guests recline on their assigned couches, their positions carefully calculated to reflect their status. The food begins to arrive, carried by an army of slaves moving in choreographed precision. First come the gustaccio, appetizers designed to stimulate the appetite. Perhaps melon wrapped in cured ham, oysters with garum sauce, or stuffed dormice, a Roman delicacy. The conversation begins light and flattering. No one mentions anything potentially controversial until they gauge your mood. Even the most powerful senators tread carefully around an emperor who controls life and death with a gesture. The wine flows mixed with water and honey in the Roman fashion. As the cena proper, the main course arrives. The true spectacle begins. Whole roasted boars, peacocks reconstructed with their feathers after cooking, elaborate fish dishes, and exotic meats from across the empire. Each dish is a statement of power. Only an emperor can command ingredients from Britain to Egypt to appear on the same table. You notice a senator eyeing a particular dish nervously. It's a platter of sea urchins, considered a great delicacy, but notoriously difficult to eat gracefully. You smile and gesture for it to be served to him first, a small test of his composure under pressure. Such microaggressions were common at imperial dinners, where everything had political undertones. Between courses, entertainment keeps the mood lively. Perhaps a Greek poet reciting an ode composed in your honor, or a troupe of dancers from Syria with exotic movements never seen in Rome. Some emperors preferred more unusual entertainment. Domitian allegedly enjoyed watching dwarfs fight female gladiators, while Elagabalus was said to have tigers and lions released among the dinner guests, safely chained but terrifying nonetheless. By the time the Secundi Mensi dessert arrives, many guests are visibly relaxed from wine and good food. This is often when you might bring up more serious matters, testing loyalties or floating political trial balloons. The sugared fruits and honey cakes are accompanied by sweeter wine, further loosening tongues. One senator has clearly had too much to drink and begins a story that veers dangerously close to criticizing your recent tax policies. The room tenses, waiting for your reaction. Will you laugh it off magnanimously like Trajan might have, or take deadly offense like Caligula? The evening's success often hinged on such moments. The unpredictability of imperial favor was a powerful control mechanism. Even the most secure senator knew that fortunes could change in an instant if the emperor took offense. As the dinner party continues, you decide to be merciful with a wave of your hand. You laugh off the senator's near criticism, and the entire room relaxes. You've shown both power and restraint, the mark of a confident emperor. More wine for our friend, you command, and slaves rush to refill his cup. The senator bows his head in gratitude, knowing how close he came to disaster. The physical environment of the imperial dining room itself is worth noting. Unlike modern dining rooms with chairs and high tables, Romans ate while reclining on couches propped up on their left elbow with the right hand free for eating. This position, while considered elegant, often led to digestive problems and acid reflux. One reason Romans were so fond of digestive aids like mint and fennel after meals. The room is illuminated by dozens of oil lamps, creating a warm, flickering light that flatters every face. The smoke from these lamps would eventually leave a fine layer of soot on everything. One more cleaning task for the slaves tomorrow. Some wealthier Romans used oil lamps filled with beeswax instead of standard olive oil, producing less smoke and a sweeter smell. But even the imperial palace couldn't completely avoid the smoky residue. The air is heavy with competing scents, the food, the perfumed bodies of the guests, the flowers strewn about, and the incense burning in small braziers to mask less pleasant odor. Without modern ventilation, even imperial dining rooms could become stifling, especially in summer. As the evening wears on, nature eventually calls. For the emperor, this presents no problem. Simply gesture to a slave who brings a silver chamber pot screened discreetly by other slaves holding up fabric. For guests, there are elegant private facilities adjacent to the dining room. The ancient Romans had surprisingly sophisticated toilets for their time, at least for the wealthy. The imperial palace featured private latrines with running water, essentially proto-flush toilets that drained into the sewer system. Emperor Hadrian's villa at Tivoli contained multiple toilet facilities, including private ones for the emperor himself and semi-private ones for guests. Archaeological evidence shows these were often decorated with mosaics and had running water to carry waste away, a luxury unknown to most of the ancient world. The less fortunate citizens of Rome used public latrines, where people sat side by side on stone benches with holes, often having conversations while handling their business. A channel of water ran beneath to carry waste away, and instead of toilet paper, they used a sponge on a stick rinsed in a water channel between uses. By comparison, the imperial bathroom arrangements were the height of luxury and privacy. After dinner comes the conversatio, the drinking party. This is when the real political work happens. As inhibitions lower and true thoughts emerge, you signal for the tables to be cleared and replaced with smaller ones for wine cups. The wine flows more freely now, less diluted than during dinner. Some emperors, like Claudius, were notorious for their drinking. Others, like Augustus, were known for moderation, rarely having more than 3 cups of wine at a banquet. Your approach to alcohol says much about your imperial style. Restraint suggests self-discipline, while excess can either indicate genial bonhomie or dangerous indulgence depending on your behavior while drunk. The music changes to something more lively. A Syrian dance troupe performs exotic movements that would scandalize older, more traditional Romans. One senator looks uncomfortable, probably one of the conservative old guard, who thinks Rome is declining morally. You make a mental note of his reaction. Such cultural fault lines are useful for categorizing potential allies and enemies. By now, many guests show signs of having overindulged. A military commander is snoring softly on his couch. 2 senators are engaged in an increasingly heated debate about chariot teams. An equestrian is tried with diminishing coordination to flirt with one of the dancers. For you as emperor, even drunkenness must be managed carefully. You can never completely lose control. Too many people are watching evaluating your fitness to rule. Emperor Tiberius had a reputation as a heavy drinker, earning the nickname by Iberius Claudius Mero, a pun meaning drinker of hot wine without water. His reported debauchery on the island of Capri damaged his reputation severely. As the evening finally winds down, guests begin to depart, each coming to thank you for your hospitality. Some emperors gave expensive parting gifts. Nero was known for his lavish party favors, including jewelry and even slaves. Others, like the frugal Vespasian, kept things simpler. After the last guest leaves, you can finally relax. The formal toga comes off, replaced by a lighter synthesis. Essentially, a comfortable robe for evening wear. Your feet, likely sore from the impractical Roman footwear, are massaged by a slave with scented oils. Now comes the final hygiene ritual of the day. Slaves prepare a light evening bath, not the full bathing cycle, but a quick cleansing to remove the sweat and food smells of the banquet. The water is scented with lavender, known for its calming properties to aid sleep. Your personal physician approaches with your evening medications. Roman medicine was a strange mix of practical treatments and superstitious remedies. Emperor Marcus Aurelius reportedly took a daily theriac, a complex preparation containing up to 64 ingredients, including opium and herbs, sometimes even viper flesh, prescribed by his physician Galen, to prevent poisoning and disease. The connection between imperial health and hygiene was taken very seriously. When Emperor Hadrian began suffering from dropsy edema, his physicians prescribed specific baths and dietary restrictions. The famous physician Galen rose to prominence treating Marcus Aurelius and his son Commodus, focusing heavily on preventative hygiene as well as reactive treatments. After taking your medicines, slaves help you into bed. The imperial bed is a masterpiece of comfort by ancient standards. A bronze frame supporting a mattress stuffed with soft goose down with linen sheets and covers of the finest wool or silk, depending on the season. The Romans didn't have separate pajamas. You either sleep naked or in a light under tunic. Even your sleeping arrangements reflect imperial hygiene concerns. The Romans were well aware of bed bugs and fleas, and wealthy households took extensive measures to combat them. Your bed frame stands in small bowls of water to prevent insects from climbing up, and the mattress is regularly treated with herb-infused vinegar to repel pests. Cedar chips in small pouches are placed around the bed, their scent keeping away moths and other insects. Despite these precautions, parasites were an unavoidable reality even for emperors. Emperor Augustus suffered from a skin condition that may have been scabies or another parasitic infection. Regular bathing and changing of clothes helped. But without modern insecticides and antibiotics, even the most hygienic Roman couldn't completely escape such problems. As you settle into bed, a slave brings one final cup of watered wine mixed with honey and sleep-inducing herbs like valerian. Another stands ready with a fan to keep air moving and deter mosquitoes, a luxury unimaginable to common Romans who sweltered in cramped apartments. Your body slave takes a position on a small pallet near your bed, ready to tend to any needs during the night. Even an emperor's sleep isn't entirely private. Sleep itself was viewed differently in ancient Rome. Without electric lighting, Romans tended to sleep when it got dark and wake at dawn. But many also practiced segmented sleep, sleeping for several hours, waking for a period in the middle of the night, then returning to sleep until morning. During these midnight waking periods, the wealthy might read, write letters, or even have intimate relations. Some emperors used these quiet hours for reflection or to catch up on imperial business, without interruptions. Others, plagued by paranoia or guilt, found these dark hours torturous. Emperor Caligula reportedly suffered from terrible insomnia, which some historians suggest may have contributed to his mental instability. Morning comes early in Rome. Without alarm clocks, your body slave is responsible for waking you at the appropriate time, usually at dawn. As the first light filters through the windows, your day of imperial hygiene begins again. Your morning voice is rough after a night of wine and talking. A slave brings warm water mixed with honey to soothe your throat, an ancient version of a morning lozenge. Another stands ready with a silver urine pot, because even emperors wake up needing to relieve themselves. Today you have judicial duties, sitting in judgment on important cases brought before the imperial court. This requires a specific appearance, serious, dignified, but approachable. Your grooming needs to reflect this balance. After the usual morning tooth cleaning and face washing, your barber arrives to touch up your hair and beard. For court appearances, some emperors adopted a slightly severe look. Emperor Claudius was known to furrow his brow intentionally to appear more thoughtful during judicial proceedings. The makeup applied today is minimal but strategic. A touch of powder to reduce shine, perhaps a bit of color on the cheeks for a healthy appearance. Male cosmetics in Rome weren't considered effeminate if used subtly to enhance natural features. It was only when makeup became obvious that it crossed into the realm of the unmasculine. For court, you were the toga praetexta, white with a purple border, signify your role as a magistrate. The purple comes from the same expensive murex snail dye used in the fully purple toga, reserved for triumphs and special occasions. Before leaving for court, you consult with your advisors about the cases you will hear today. One involves a senator accused of corruption, a delicate matter requiring political finesse, as well as judicial wisdom. Another concerns a boundary dispute between two provinces. Technically simple but politically complicated. Your chief legal advisor reminds you of precedents set by previous emperors. Some, like Claudius, were known for their attention to legal detail and spent long hours hearing cases. Others, like Nero in his later years, largely abandoned judicial duties to pursue artistic interests. Your approach to these duties says much about your governing style. The court is held in a basilica, a large public building with excellent acoustics and impressive architecture designed to reinforce imperial authority. As you enter, everyone rises and bows. You take your seat on the tribunal, an elevated platform that physically places you above everyone else, a visual reminder of your supreme authority. Court proceedings can be lengthy, and sitting in judgment for hours presents its own hygiene challenges. A discreet slave stands ready with refreshments, water, wine mixed with water, and small honey cakes to maintain your energy. Another has perfumed cloths to wipe your brow if you begin to sweat under the heavy toga. For longer sessions, there might even be a break where you can briefly retire to a private room to relieve yourself and refresh your appearance. Even in these moments, an emperor is never truly alone. Slaves attend to every need, from holding the chamber pot to adjusting the drape of your toga before you return to court. The Romans had a complex relationship with bodily functions. On one hand, they were surprisingly open about natural processes. Public latrines were social spaces, and even literature discussed digestion and elimination without much embarrassment. On the other hand, the elite were expected to maintain dignity and control in all things, including bodily functions. Emperor Claudius once considered issuing an edict allowing people to pass gas at the dinner table, believing it unhealthy to restrain natural bodily functions. Whether he actually issued this unusual decree is debated by historians, but the story illustrates a Roman awareness of the connection between bodily functions and health. The court cases drag on through the morning. A wealthy merchant brings a case against a tax collector claiming excessive taxation. The evidence is presented. Witnesses testify. And finally, it's time for your judgment. All eyes turn to you. This is a moment where appearance matters as much as the decision itself. You sit straighter, adjust your toga to ensure the purple border is visible, and deliver your verdict in a clear, firm voice. Justice has been done, or at least imperial has been enacted, which in Rome amounts to the same thing. By midday, the formal court session ends, and you retire to the palace for the midday meal prandium. This is typically a light meal, perhaps bread, cheese, fruits, and a little wine. Heavy eating during the day was considered unhealthy and the sign of a glutton with poor self-control. After lunch comes a uniquely Roman custom, the midday rest or meridiatio. Even the busiest emperor typically took this break during the hottest part of the day. Some used it for actual sleep, others for quiet contemplation, or catching up on reading and correspondence. During this rest period, you might change into lighter clothing, perhaps just a tunic without the formal toga. Slaves bring cool drinks and fan you to create a breeze in the still summer air. Even with the empire's impressive aqueducts providing water to the palace, there's no real equivalent to modern air conditioning. Comfort in hot weather relies on thick stone walls, strategic ventilation, and slaves with fans. The meridiatio is also a time when you might apply fresh scents or have slaves change your undergarments if you've been sweating heavily in the morning heat. Even with regular bathing, body odor was a constant concern in the ancient world. The Romans compensated with liberal use of perfumes not just to smell pleasant, but because they believed certain scents had health benefits. Rose oil was thought to cool the body, while spikenard supposedly warmed it. Myrrh was believed to have antiseptic properties, and frankincense was considered beneficial for the lungs. Your personal physician might recommend specific scents based on the humoral theory of medicine, the belief that health depended on the balance of 4 bodily fluids or humors. As the afternoon heat begins to subside, you prepare for your next engagement, a visit to a newly completed temple where you will perform sacred duties as Pontifex Maximus, the chief priest of Rome. This religious role requires yet another specific appearance and set of hygiene rituals. Religious purity in Roman terms often involved physical cleanliness. Before important ceremonies, you would undergo ritual purification, washing your hands in sacred water, sometimes having your head sprinkled with water using a branch of laurel or olive. For major rites, a complete bath might be required beforehand. The ceremonial toga for religious functions, the toga capite, includes pulling part of the toga up to cover your head during sacrifices. This creates yet another challenge for maintaining a dignified appearance, as the fabric must be arranged just so, neither slipping off nor looking haphazard. Your hair and beard are touched up again before the ceremony. Religious roles demanded perfect presentation. Any dishevelment could be interpreted as disrespect to the gods or a bad omen. Even a stray hair out of place might require restarting certain rituals. For religious ceremonies, Perfumes and scented oils with sacred associations are used. Perhaps frankincense from Arabia or locally grown herbs like verbena that had religious significance. These scents weren't just for pleasant smell, but were believed to please the gods and create an appropriate atmosphere for communion with divine forces. As Pontifex Maximus, you oversee the sacrifice at the temple dedication, usually an animal like a bull or sheep. This messy business creates its own hygiene challenges. Blood might splatter onto your toga or hands, requiring immediate cleansing afterward. The Romans had specific rituals for removing blood after sacrifices, seeing it as potentially polluting despite its sacred context. After the ceremony, you return to the palace for yet another change of clothes and cleansing. Religious blood was handled differently than blood from warfare or injury. It required specific purification rituals rather than just physical cleaning. By now, the day is moving toward evening, and thoughts turn to the night's entertainment. Tonight, instead of hosting a dinner, you'll be attending the games at the Colosseum, another public appearance requiring its own specific preparations. Attending the games at the Colosseum requires specific preparations. This is a highly public appearance where thousands of Romans will see you up close. Your image must be perfect, regal yet approachable, magnificent without seeming decadent. Your body slaves prepare a special bath with oil selected specifically for this occasion. Public appearances require stronger perfumes that will carry across distances. Private scents might be subtle and complex, but arena scents need to be bold and recognizable. Perhaps a strong cedar and citrus combination that hints at strength and vitality. After bathing, your hair and beard are styled once more. For the games, a slightly more martial appearance is preferred. Your hair combed forward in the Caesar style, if you're that period, or your beard trimmed to emphasize your jawline, if you're from the later bearded emperor tradition. Clothing for the games is carefully chosen, while the toga is Rome's formal dress. For the arena, you might wear military attire if you want to emphasize your connection to the army, or the imperial purple if you wish to highlight your supreme authority. Either way, the garments are fresh and immaculate. An emperor never appears in public in clothes worn earlier in the day, no matter how briefly. One detail that might surprise modern people: Roman men, including emperors, often had their legs depilate, particularly for those wearing the toga, which exposed the lower legs. Having smooth skin was considered refined and civilized. Hairy legs were associated with barbarians and the lower classes. Emperor Augustus was said to have had the hair on his legs burned with hot walnut shells to make it grow back softer and less noticeable. As you dress, a slave applies a light dusting of powder to prevent shine on your face. Another applies a subtle tint to your lips. Not obvious makeup, but enough to ensure you don't look pallid from a distance. Even male emperors use such enhancements, though they would vehemently deny wearing cosmetics as such. Your final accessories include jewelry, rings, perhaps an armband if in military dress, and a crown or laurel wreath, depending on the period and occasion. Emperor Nero was known for his extravagant jewelry, while Marcus Aurelius kept his accessories simple and philosophical. With your appearance perfected, you depart for the Colosseum. The imperial litter, essentially an enclosed sedan chair carried by strong slaves, protects you from the dust and dirt of Rome's streets. Even with the empire's impressive urban planning, streets were often muddy or dusty, depending on weather, and waste disposal was primitive by modern standards. The litter has silk curtains that can be drawn back to allow the public to see you or close for privacy. Some emperors like Hadrian prefer to walk through the city, considering it more democratic and accessible. Others like Caligula or Nero maintain more distance from the common people. Arriving at the Colosseum, you don't enter through the main gates with the masses. There's a private imperial entrance leading directly to the imperial box. This passage is kept scrupulously clean compared to the public areas. The Colosseum could hold up to 50,000 spectators, and the hygiene challenges of such a crowd were considerable. Public areas had their own facilities. Latrines positioned under the seating areas where spectators could relieve themselves. These drained into the sophisticated Roman sewer system, but the smell would still be noticeable on hot days. The imperial box, however, had private facilities nearby, maintained to much higher standards of cleanliness. The imperial box itself is a marvel of comfort in an otherwise utilitarian structure. Cushioned seating, protection from the sun, and access to refreshments make it the epitome of ancient luxury. As you take your seat, a slave offers a scented cloth to wipe your hands and face. Another stands ready with a fan to keep you cool and ward off the inevitable arena smells. Dust, sweat, blood, and the gathered humanity of Rome. The games begin with a procession. The editors sponsor the games, paying homage to you as emperor. The crowd roars at your appearance, and you acknowledge them with practiced dignity. How you interact with the crowd matters. Too aloof, and you seem disconnected. Too enthusiastic, and you lose imperial gravitas. Different emperors had different approaches to this balance. Augustus maintained dignified engagement, while Commodus famously descended into the arena himself to fight as a gladiator. A shocking breach of imperial dignity that contributed to his reputation as unbalanced and unfit to rule. Throughout the games, slaves attend to your comfort. They offer watered wine and small delicacies. They adjust cushions and provide shade. One stands ready with fresh perfume cloths to wipe away any sweat or dust. Another might apply a touch of fresh scent if needed. The smells of the arena could be overwhelming, especially when executions were part of the program. The games themselves included various events, animal hunts, gladiatorial combats, executions of criminals, and sometimes elaborate stage battles. Each had its own impact on the senses. The animal hunts might release exotic scents from creatures and plants brought from Africa or Asia. The gladiatorial combats raised clouds of sand and the metallic smell of blood. Executions could be even more pungent and disturbing. Through it all, the emperor was expected to maintain composure and appropriate reactions. Show too much bloodlust, and you might be considered cruel. Show too much compassion, and you might seem weak. Your every gesture is noted and interpreted by the watchful crowd. When a victorious gladiator looks to you for the decision on his defeated opponent's fate, your thumb's signal determines life or death. This power over life and death is the ultimate expression of imperial authority, performed as a public hygiene ritual of sorts, purging society of its weakest elements for the entertainment of the masses. The games last for hours, testing even an emperor's endurance. Eventually, as the sun begins to set, the day's events conclude. You rise, acknowledge the crowd once more, and depart through your private exit. The imperial litter awaits to carry you back to the palace. Upon returning, your body slaves immediately begin the process of removing the arena from your person. Your clothes are taken to be cleaned or possibly discarded. Imperial garments were often worn only once, particularly after exposure to the dust and smells of public venues. A bath is drawn, more thorough than the morning ablutions. This one focuses on cleansing rather than preparation, removing not just physical dirt, but the metaphorical stain of the arena's violence. The Romans had complex feelings about the games. They were essential to Roman culture, yet carried moral ambiguity that even emperors sometimes acknowledged. The bath water is scented with purifying herbs, laurel, rosemary, thyme, believed to have cleansing properties beyond the physical. As you soak, a slave might read to you from Greek philosophy or poetry, helping to transition your mind from the brutality of the arena to the refinement of evening activities. After bathing, you're dried with soft linen towels, and a fresh set of house clothes is provided. Perhaps a light synthesis in formal dinner robe if you're dining privately this evening. A different scent is applied, something calmer and more subtle than the bold arena perfume. For tonight's private dinner, you've requested a few close advisors rather than a formal banquet. The smaller setting allows for more intimate conversation and relaxed dining. A welcome respite after the public performance at the games. Even private imperial meals followed certain hygiene rituals. Hands were washed before eating, usually in scented water carried by slaves in silver basins. Diners would clean their fingers frequently during the meal, as most foods were eaten by hand. Small linen napkins were used to wipe the mouth and fingers. The food itself reflected imperial access to the finest ingredients from across the empire. But even emperors weren't immune to food-borne illness. Without refrigeration, food safety was a constant concern. Royal food tasters were employed not just to detect poison, but also to identify spoiled dishes before they reached the imperial mouth. Some emperors were notoriously picky about their food and drink. Augustus preferred simple fare and was particularly fond of coarse bread, small fish, hand-pressed cheese, and green figs. Tiberius was so concerned about the quality of his vegetables that he had them grown under supervision on Capri. Alexander Severus insisted on fresh, never preserved foods, believing them healthier. During dinner, conversation turned to matters of state, reports from the provinces, upcoming appointments, issues requiring imperial attention. One advisor mentions growing unrest in a distant province. Another discusses a construction project in the city. You listen, ask questions, and provide direction while maintaining the appearance of effortless authority. After dinner, as the evening progresses, you retire to your private chambers for the final hygiene rituals of the day. First comes the evening visit to the imperial latrine, the private toilet facilities reserved for your use. While public Roman latrines were often communal affairs with multiple seats arranged side by side, imperial toilets offered privacy and comfort unknown to common citizens. The imperial latrine features a marble seat cushion for comfort. Water flows constantly beneath, carrying waste directly to the sewers. Scented oil lamps provide light, and braziers with aromatic herbs help mask any unpleasant odor. Soft cloths are provided for cleansing. The wealthy never use a sponge on a stictorsorium common in public facilities. After attending to nature's needs, your body slave helps prepare you for sleep. Your face is cleansed with scented water to remove any remaining powder or skin preparations. A night cream might be applied, perhaps almond oil mixed with rose water, believed to rejuvenate the skin while sleeping. Oral hygiene wasn't forgotten either. A final mouth rinse with wine and herbs freshens the breath before sleep. Some Romans used mint, parsley, or vinegar for this purpose without modern dentistry. Even emperors suffered from dental problems. Julius Caesar was known to have had significant dental issues despite his meticulous grooming in other areas. Your body slave helps you into your sleeping attire, perhaps nothing at all in summer, or a light linen sleeping tunic in cooler weather. The Romans didn't have specialized pajamas, as we know them. Emperors typically slept on beds with frames of precious metals or exotic woods with mattresses stuffed with feathers rather than the wool or straw used by commoners. Before sleep, a final health check might be performed by your physician. The pulse was taken, skin examined for any concerning changes, and perhaps some preventative medicine administered. The famous physician Galen served as personal doctor to Emperor Marcus Aurelius, focusing heavily on preventative care and hygiene as a foundation of health. Roman medicine blended practical observation with superstition and ritual. An emperor might wear an amulet to ward off disease alongside taking actual medicinal preparations. Health and hygiene were inextricably linked with religious and magical thinking, even for the most educated Romans. As you prepare for sleep, slaves adjust the bedding, plump pillows stuffed with soft down, and ensure the room temperature is comfortable. In summer, they might place large blocks of ice brought at great expense from mountaintops and stored in underground chambers near the bed to cool the air. In winter, hypocausts, the Roman underfloor heating system, would warm the imperial bedchamber. The emperor's sleep environment was carefully controlled to the extent ancient technology allowed. Lamps would be extinguished to avoid the risk of fire, though one might be left burning at a safe distance to provide minimal light if needed during the night. A slave always remained within calling distance in case the emperor required anything during the night. Sleep quality was considered important for imperial health and appearance. Dark circles under the eyes or a haggard look would undermine the image of divine vigor, so crucial to imperial authority. Yet many emperors suffered from insomnia. perhaps unsurprisingly given the pressures and dangers of their position. Emperor Augustus reportedly had trouble sleeping and would wake during the night, requiring someone to tell him stories until he drifted off again. Caligula famously suffered from insomnia so severe that he would wander the palace colonnades, waiting for daylight and calling on dawn to arrive. These sleep disturbances may have contributed to his increasingly erratic behavior. As sleep finally claims you, your body slave takes its position on a small pallet near the door, alert for any sounds indicating you need assistance during the night. Other slaves stand guard outside your chambers, both for protection and to attend to any midnight requests. The imperial palace never truly sleeps. Throughout the night, cleaning slaves work to restore areas used during the day. Garments are washed or aired, floors scrubbed, dining areas cleaned and prepared for morning. The machinery of imperial appearance requires constant maintenance, most of it unseen by the emperor himself. By the time dawn approaches, the palace is ready to begin the cycle again. Fresh water has been drawn for the morning ablutions, breakfast ingredients prepared, and the day's garments selected and pressed. The emperor's hygiene rituals are supported by an army of specialized slaves working around the clock. As the first light of dawn filters through the windows, your body slave approaches the bed. Another day of imperial hygiene is about to begin. The endless cycle of grooming, bathing, dressing, and presenting the perfect imperial image to a watching world. Caesar, he whispers, "It is time to rise." You open your eyes immediately aware of your surroundings and status. There is no gentle transition from sleep to wakefulness for an emperor. The weight of the empire descends the moment consciousness returns. Today brings new challenges, new appearances to maintain, new performances of imperial dignity. The morning routine begins again, but with variations specific to today's schedule. This morning, you'll be receiving foreign ambassadors requiring particular attention to appearance. Foreign visitors judge Rome itself by its emperor, and impressions of wealth, sophistication, and power must be carefully crafted. For receiving ambassadors, your scent will be different. Perhaps something exotic from the East to subtly demonstrate Rome's far-reaching trade networks. Your clothing will be more elaborate than usual, showcasing Roman craftsmanship and wealth without seeming ostentatious. The balance is delicate. Display too much luxury and you appear decadent. Too little and Rome seems weak. After the morning hygiene rituals, your hairdresser creates a slightly more formal style. If you're from the bearded emperor era, your beard is trimmed to perfect symmetry. If you're from the clean-shaven period, your face is scraped smooth with particular attention to detail. Either way, the appearance must be flawless. Foreign ambassadors will scrutinize every aspect of imperial presentation. Your body slave applies a touch of color to your cheeks. Not obvious makeup, but enough to create a healthy, vigorous appearance. Another slave polishes your fingernails and makes sure your hands are impeccably clean and soft. Hands receive particular attention in Roman grooming, as they were always visible and frequently used in expressive gestures during speech. When dressing, you select jewelry with diplomatic significance, perhaps wearing items that reference the culture of your visitors to show respect, while still maintaining distinctly Roman elements to reinforce your own cultural primacy. Emperor Hadrian was particularly skilled at this cultural balancing act during his extensive travels throughout the empire. The toga for diplomatic functions was the toga picked up purple with gold embroidery, signifying the highest imperial status. It required particular skill to drape properly, and several slaves worked together to create perfect folds and draping. Once draped, you must move carefully to maintain its dignity. Sudden movements would disrupt the carefully arranged fabric. With your appearance perfected, you move to the throne room to receive the ambassadors. Here, too, hygiene considerations shape the environment. Incense burns in strategic locations, not just for religious significance, but to ensure the room smells pleasant despite the many bodies that will gather there. Slaves have scrubbed the marble floors to a gleaming finish and polished every metal surface to brilliant reflection. The throne itself, the sella curulis, is adorned with cushions covered in the finest fabrics. making it both comfortable for potentially long diplomatic sessions and visually impressive. Your posture on this throne is practiced and perfect, straight back, but not stiff, commanding, but not tense. As the ambassadors are announced, you maintain the imperial mask, the careful composition of features that suggest strength, wisdom, and absolute authority. This facial control was itself a skill cultivated by effective emperors. Emperor Augustus was particularly known for his ability to maintain a calm, dignified expression regardless of circumstances. Throughout the diplomatic reception, slaves stand ready to attend to any imperial need. One holds a fly whisk made from peacock feathers to keep insect away, a practical consideration that doubles as a symbol of luxury. Another is prepared with scented cloth should you need to wipe your brow or hands. A third stands ready with refreshments, watered wine in jeweled cups, served at precisely the right temperature. The reception lasts for several hours, during which you must maintain perfect imperial composure. No scratching, no obvious sweating, no unsightly bodily functions can be acknowledged. This physical self-control was itself a demonstration of fitness to rule. If an emperor couldn't master his own body, how could he master an empire? After the diplomatic reception concludes, you're finally able to relax your perfect imperial posture. Your back aches from hours of sitting rigidly straight, and your face muscles are tired from maintaining the imperial expression, serious yet benevolent, powerful yet approachable. The ambassador seemed impressed. Caesar, your chief advisor, says as the throne room empties. You nod, allow yourself a small sigh, now that only your close staff remains. Even this momentary display of fatigue will be unacceptable in public. An emperor must appear tireless, godlike in his energy and composure. Prepare the bath, you tell your body slave. The scented oils from Egypt. The diplomatic performance has left you mentally and physically drained. Another bath is needed not just for physical cleanliness, but as a psychological reset, washing away the tension of maintaining perfect imperial dignity for hours. As you wait for the bath to be prepared, you remove the heavy official jewelry, the golden laurel crown that presses into your temples, the ornate rings that restrict your finger movement, the ceremonial brooch that has been digging into your shoulder. Each piece is carefully taken by a slave to be cleaned and stored in the imperial treasury. The toga that most Roman of garments is also a relief to remove. Though visually impressive, it's essentially a large woolen blanket draped in a specific way, hot and restrictive. Emperor Augustus allegedly required his senators to wear togas at all official functions despite their complaints about the discomfort. A small power play, forcing the political class to endure the same restrictive clothing he had to wear. Now in just your tunic, you stretch your arms and roll your shoulders, working out the stiffness from hours of formal posture. A body slave approaches with a cup of watered wine mixed with herbs to refresh you while the bath is being prepared. The preparation of an imperial bath was an elaborate process. While common Romans might make do with whatever water temperature was available at the public baths, an emperor's bath required precise heating to the preferred temperature. Slaves tested the water with their elbows, added scented oils in the exact proportions you prefer, and arranged fresh towels and post-bath necessities. This midday bath differs from both the morning hygienic wash and the elaborate social bathing ritual. This is purely for relaxation and rejuvenation, a private luxury rather than a public performance or basic necessity. When you enter the bathing chamber, the steam carries a sense of lotus, myrrh, and cassia, exotic fragrances from Egypt believed to have restorative properties. The Romans imported vast quantities of these aromatics, considering them well worth their considerable expense for their perceived health benefits. Your body slave helps you remove your tunic, and you step into the hot water with a satisfied sigh. Another slave begins to massage your shoulders with scented oil, working out the tension of maintaining imperial bearing. A third stands ready with a strigil to scrape away oil and dead skin when the time comes. The private imperial bath chamber is a marvel of Roman engineering and luxury. Walls of polished marble reflect the light from oil lamps, giving the steam a golden glow. The bath itself is large enough for several people, though you bathe alone. A rare moment of relative privacy, in the fishbowl existence of an emperor. Even here, though, you're not truly alone. At minimum, 3 or 4 slaves attend you at all times. True privacy simply doesn't exist for a Roman emperor. Even using the toilet is a semi-public affair, with slaves assisting before and after. The concept of personal space, as we understand it today, was foreign to the Romans, particularly for public figures. As you soak in the fragrant water, a slave offers a tray of light refreshments, sliced fruit, small honey cakes, and more watered wine. Bathing was often accompanied by snacking, another difference from modern bathing habits. Some emperors, like Tiberius, were reported to have actually eaten full meals while bathing. After sufficient soaking, the scraping begins. The strigil, that curved metal tool for removing oil and dirt, requires skill to use effectively without causing pain. Your body slave has years of practice, applying just the right pressure to clean without hurting. The scraping is followed by a rinse with clean water, then a final application of scented oil to moisturize the skin. Clean, refreshed, and smelling of exotic spices, you're ready to dress for the afternoon activities. Unlike the formal diplomatic attire, your afternoon outfit is more practical. A simple but high-quality tunic for reviewing architectural plans for a new building project. The building project is a new bath complex you commissioned. Ironically enough, public baths were among the most popular imperial building projects guaranteed to win public favor. Emperors from Augustus to Caracalla built increasingly elaborate bathing facilities for the public, combining practical hygiene with political messaging. These massive complexes weren't just places to get clean. They were social centers, exercise facilities, libraries, art galleries, and restaurants, all under one roof. Ancient Roman community centers centered around the bathing ritual. By building one, you're participating in a long tradition of imperial public works designed to demonstrate both generosity and power. The architect spreads the plans on a large table, explaining his vision for the new facility. The design includes a standard progression of rooms: the frigidarium, cold room, tepidarium, warm room, and caldarium, hot room, but also exercise yards, gardens, libraries, and even a small theater for poetry readings and musical performances. And here, Caesar, the architect says, pointing to a small section of the plans, is the imperial suite, should you choose to honor the facility with your presence. This private imperial bathing area within the public complex will allow you to participate in the public bathing ritual while maintaining appropriate imperial dignity and security. It would have its own entrance, more luxurious fixtures and privacy screens, while still allowing you to be seen by the public in a controlled way. As you review the plans, a slave stands nearby with a jug of watered wine and a plate of light snacks. Another holds a damp scented cloth for you to wipe your hands periodically. The papyrus and parchment plans can leave residue on the fingers, and an emperor must always maintain clean hands. The architectural review continues for several hours with discussions of materials, costs, and timeline. By late afternoon, you've approved the plans with minor modifications, earning the architect's profuse gratitude. Imperial approval means his career is secure, at least for now. As the architect departs, your schedule coordinator approaches with a reminder of the evening's engagement, a poetry recital by a famous Greek poet who has dedicated his latest work to you. This will be a smaller gathering than a full banquet, but still requires appropriate preparation. First, though, there's time for a brief rest during the late afternoon lull. Romans typically took a break during the hottest part of the day, and even emperors followed this practice when possible. You retire to a comfortable couch in a cool, shaded garden courtyard within the palace complex. A slave brings chilled fruit juice, an expensive luxury requiring ice brought down from mountaintops and stored in underground chambers. Another adjusts cushions to support your back perfectly. A third gently fans you, creating a pleasant breeze in the still afternoon air. This moment of relative calm allows reflection on the emperor's complex relationship with physical appearance. The bodies of emperors were in many ways public property, subjected to constant scrutiny and laden with symbolic importance. Physical perfection was expected, though reality often fell short of the ideal. Emperor Claudius's physical disabilities, his limp and slight speech impediment, were mercilessly mocked by his detractors and seen as signs of unsuitability for rule. Emperor Galba's bald head and protruding belly were considered negative omens by the image-conscious Romans. Emperor Otho's careful attention to his appearance, including his well-crafted wig, was simultaneously necessary for imperial dignity, yet criticized as effeminate vanity. Even in death, an emperor's body remained public property. The Roman practice of deification after death meant the emperor's physical form took on religious significance. The funeral masks created to preserve the emperor's likeness became objects of veneration, displayed important state functions to represent the divine ancestors watching over Rome. Your rest is interrupted by your body slave, gently reminding you of the time. The poetry recital will begin soon, requiring yet another change of clothing and grooming refresh. This evening event calls for a balance of formality and approachability, impressive enough to honor the visiting poet, but relaxed enough to enjoy the literary entertainment. The preparations begin again. A fresh tunic is brought out, this one dyed with saffron to create a rich yellow hue signifying luxury, without the overwhelming formality of imperial purple. A light application of scented oil is applied to your skin and hair using a different fragrance than earlier, perhaps something with literary associations like bay laurel sacred to Apollo, god of poetry. Your beard, if in the Hadrianic tradition, is combed and lightly oiled to shine in the evening lamplight. Your hair is arranged in the appropriate style for your imperial period, the forward combed style of Augustus and his successors, or the more elaborate curled styles of later emperors. A subtle application of powder ensures your face won't shine unattractively in the warm room. Jewelry for the evening is carefully selected. Intellectual pursuits call for more restrained adornment than military or political functions. Perhaps a single significant ring and a simple golden neck chain displaying refinement without ostentation. Emperor Hadrian, a noted intellectual, was known to dress more simply when engaging with philosophers and poets. As you enter the recital room, guests already gathered rise and bow deeply. The room is arranged with comfortable couches for reclining in the Roman dining style, though this event will feature poetry rather than an elaborate meal. Still, light refreshments are available. Wine, fruit, small delicacies to nibble during the performance. You take your place on the central couch, the position of honor. A slave adjusts cushions behind your back and places a small table within easy reach, bearing a cup of your preferred wine blend and a small plate of honey dates. Another slave stands discreetly nearby with a fan, ready to keep you cool during performance. The visiting poet is announced and enters with appropriate deference, bowing deeply before beginning his recitation. The poem, as expected, contains elaborate praise of your wisdom, generosity, and divine connection, standard flattery for imperial dedicated works. You will listen with practiced attention, nodding appreciatively at particularly well-crafted lines. Throughout the recital, your public face never slips. You maintain the appearance of culture appreciation regardless of the poem's actual quality. An emperor's reactions set the tone for the entire gathering. If you appear bored, others will take that as permission to display their own disinterest, potentially insulting the poet. Some emperors were genuine literary enthusiasts. Hadrian wrote poetry himself, including the famous lines about his little soul as he faced death. Marcus Aurelius composed his philosophical meditations during military campaigns. Others, like Nero, had literary pretensions without corresponding talent, forcing courtiers to endure hours of mediocre performances while feigning delight. After the recitation concludes, you offer measured praise and present the poet with an appropriate gift, perhaps a purse of gold coins or small but valuable art object. The gathering then transitions to a light dinner and discussion of the work with guests carefully watching your reactions to gauge their own responses. Throughout the evening, slaves attend to your every need, refilling your wine cup before it empties, offering fresh napkins for your hands, adjusting the room temperature with fans or braziers as needed. The attention is so constant yet unobtrusive that most Romans never gave it conscious thought. But the comfort of the elite was built upon this perpetual service. As the evening progresses and conversation flows, you maintain imperial dignity, while allowing a slightly more relaxed demeanor appropriate to the literary setting. There's an art to this balance. Too stiff, and you appear unapproachable. Too relaxed, and you undermine imperial gravitas. Different emperors struck this balance differently, reflecting their personal style of rule. Eventually, the gathering begins to wind down. Guests depart with elaborate thanks and good wishes for your continued health and wisdom. As the last visitors leave, you can finally allow your shoulders to relax slightly. The imperial mask to soften just a bit in the presence of only your closest staff. A successful evening. Caesar, your chamberlain observes quietly. You nod, already anticipating the relief of removing the formal clothing and jewelry, of washing away the public performance along with the day's accumulated oils and powders. The final hygiene ritual of the day begins. Your body slave helps remove your formal attire, carefully folding the expensive garments to be cleaned or aired. The jewelry is removed and handed to the treasury slave for secure storage. A warm basin of water is brought for washing your face, removing any remaining powder or oil. The water is infused with soothing herbs, lavender, chamomile, selected for their calming properties to encourage restful sleep. After the face washing, your hands and feet receive special attention with warm water and gentle scrubbing to remove any dirt or roughness. For hair and beard care, a light application of scented oil helps condition and protect while sleeping. Your teeth are cleaned one final time with a tooth powder and twig brush, followed by a mouth rinse of mint-infused water to freshen breath. Then comes the evening toilet visit. The private imperial latrine with its marble seat, running water, and scented air. Even this most basic function receives attention to comfort and dignity with soft cloths for cleaning and a slave to attend before and after. Finally ready for sleep, you change into your sleeping tunic, a light garment for the warm Roman night. Your body slave has already prepared the bed, plumping pillows stuffed with the softest goose down and ensuring the linen sheets are perfectly smooth. As you settle into bed, a slave brings one final cup of watered wine mixed with honey and sleep-inducing herbs. Another adjusts the oil lamps, lowering the light to a soft glow that will soon be extinguished completely. A third ensures the room temperature is perfect for sleeping, opening or closing vents to the hypocaust heating system as needed. Your personal physician might make a brief appearance, checking your pulse and asking about any physical complaints. Preventative health was a major focus of Roman medicine, with diet, exercise, and hygiene seen as a foundation of well-being. Emperor Marcus Aurelius' physician, Galen, wrote extensively on these topics, creating health regimens followed by the elite for centuries. With all preparations complete, you're finally ready for sleep. Your body slave takes a position on a small pallet near the door, ready to attend to any needs during the night. Other slaves will stand guard outside your chambers, both for protection and service. As you drift toward sleep, you might reflect on the paradox of your position. You command unimaginable power and luxury, with hundreds of people dedicated to your physical comfort and appearance. Yet for all this attention, your hygiene and health care remain primitive by modern standards. You use lead-based makeup that slowly poisons you. You clean your teeth with abrasive powders that gradually wear away the enamel. You treat skin conditions with remedies containing animal dung and other dubious ingredients. For all your wealth and power, you're at the mercy of ancient medical knowledge that often does more harm than good. Even the magnificent public baths, for all their impressive engineering, were breeding ground for parasites and disease. The hot, humid environment and shared water created perfect conditions for spreading infections. Emperor Hadrian's extensive bathing may have contributed to his health problems rather than preventing them. The elaborate hairstyles required hours of work and often involved false pieces made from the hair of slaves or people from conquered territories, literally wearing the body parts of the subjugated as fashion statements. The heavy use of oils and infrequent washing of these hairpieces created their own hygiene issues. sometimes including lice or other parasites. Many of the perfumes and cosmetics used contain toxic ingredients: lead, mercury, arsenic, slowly accumulating in the body and causing chronic health problems. Emperor Nero's tremors and erratic behavior may have been partially attributable to lead poisoning from cosmetics and contaminated water carried through lead pipes. For all your power as emperor, you remain vulnerable to the same diseases and hygiene challenges as your subjects, albeit with more resources to address them. The physician Galen observed that even emperors couldn't command good health. It had to be cultivated through proper regimen and care. This contradiction between power and vulnerability, between luxury and primitive conditions, defines the emperor's physical existence. You can command armies that span continents, but you can't prevent tooth decay or effectively treat a simple infection. You wear the most expensive fabrics in the world, but still struggle with body odor and parasites like everyone else. As sleep finally claims you, these thoughts fade into dreams of glory and immortality, the comforting fictions that help emperors bear the burdens of rule and the limitations of human existence. Tomorrow will bring another cycle of grooming, bathing, dressing, and presenting the perfect imperial image to a watching world. The empire never sleeps, and neither does the machinery of imperial appearance. Throughout the night, slaves clean and prepare for tomorrow's rituals. Garments are washed or aired, baths are scrubbed, floors are swept, and ingredients for morning preparations are measured and readied. By the time dawn approaches, everything is in place for another day of imperial hygiene rituals. The cycle continues day after day, maintaining the physical foundation of imperial power. For an emperor is not just a person, but a living symbol, and symbols must be polished to shine. The ancient Romans understood something profound about power and appearance, that authority performed as much as exercised, that hygiene rituals are also political statements, that the body of the ruler is a canvas on which imperial dignity is painted anew each day. And as we drift away from ancient Rome back to our own time with its showers and toothpaste, deodorants, and washing machines, we might appreciate how much easier our daily hygiene routines are compared to those of the most powerful people in the ancient world. Our bathroom technology would amaze even an emperor, offering more comfort and cleanliness than all the slaves and luxuries of imperial Rome. The struggles of imperial hygiene remind us that power has its limits, that human bodies share common needs regardless of status, and that progress isn't always where we expect to find it. In some ways, the most ordinary person today lives cleaner and healthier than the mightiest emperor of old. And with that thought, close your eyes and drift off to sleep, grateful for modern plumbing and the simple luxury of privacy in the bathroom, something even emperors never truly knew.